Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Nixon. I'm recording this message for the Lactazale Sunday service to air on August 9th. Today is July 4th. I find myself in Hong Kong. And if you were to ask me, do you think you'd ever record a sermon on Zoom in the middle of a pandemic from Hong Kong for the lake? I would have thought you were nuts. In fact, if you could go back and listen to people live from the Great Depression or from the Spanish flu or from inside the Iron Curtain, it would be crazy. And yet that's how I feel. I'm uh, I'm living that reality at the moment. So uh, wherever you are, I hope you're well. I hope you're safe. I hope your family are all okay. Those of you who are at the lake, you're the lucky ones. And those of you who are stuck, unable to cross borders, like me and my family, we're thinking of you and hope you're having a good summer. The request for this service came early February from Anne Marie Mott Ewing and Laurie Nelson. And my response was, I don't think you're going to have a church service. I don't think you're even going to have a regatta this summer. And they were really shocked, actually, because the pandemic hadn't really reached that level of intensity yet in Canada and the US. And yet here in Hong Kong, some 500 kilometers from Wuhan, and with our experience of SARS, it was clear where things were headed. We were already wearing masks by that point, and there's still debate today about wearing masks. And unfortunately, that reality came true, and there's been too many people got sick and died in the ensuing time. Please wear a mask. It's a lot easier than wearing a ventilator. The title for my remarks today is Swim Your Distance, and I'm going to share my screen. So, swimming your distance seems to me to be a very good analogy for life today, because we find ourselves in a very difficult economy, very difficult health predicament, and a lot of conflict. So it's like dark, deep, scary waters, and maybe we don't even feel like we have our life jacket on. When you swim your distance, there's three things that really come to mind. The first is, of course, your life jacket. The second is the support boat, and the third is the water itself. So my remarks will draw analogies to these three things and link them to what we're facing in the world today. First, let me start with life jacket. To ask a child that's just 10 years of age or even younger to remove that life jacket that's provided them all their safety and even felt them able to bulk up and feel tough and big, remove that and jump in the water is terrifying. In fact, I asked my three grown children what is their earliest memory of swimming their distance, and they all said the same thing: terrifying. And they're sure that there's a Loch Ness monster lurking in the deeps of the water between the Ross and Mott docks. The world today is very much like that too, and I think if you want to consider what it's like to remove your life jacket and deal with the world around you, you have to recognize what is it that's going to give you that safety when you have to jump in to the deep waters of life. And yet it's the only way across, is to remove your life jacket and jump in. And it's only if you remove your life jacket you become strong enough to swim across the stormy waters of life. This list of cities in Canada, the US, and Mexico, North American cities with the largest migrant populations. And I think it's the fact that the world is at our doorstep nowadays that is causing a lot of people's strife. The world's different. We used to be able to get in our cars and drive to the lake. And we felt if we got out of the city and got to the lake, we'd be safe. The low population, the trees around us gave us a sense, perhaps a false sense of security. But certainly we would have never expected that it could take just a few months for a virus in China to get to the Laurentians. There's a pocket of COVID-19 in the Laurentians as I speak. So this sense of security is only able to come if you can reinflate that life jacket. And I offer to you that your life jacket only comes if you learn to have compassion for the people around you, uh, dialogue with the people around you, and build relationships with the people around you, regardless of whether those people are white or black or brown or yellow, whether they're English or French or Hispanic or Chinese, whether they are gay or lesbian or straight. The importance is that we are able to get along with our neighbors, and our neighbors are on our doorstep today. The life jacket is a great analogy for surviving the troubled waters that the world finds itself in today. I'd like to consider also the lifeboat and ask, who's in your support boat? When you are doing your swimming your distance, it's typically your family. I remember I had to swim my distance twice. The first time I failed. In my support boat was my mother and my brothers. And I was a pretty good swimmer. They knew I could make it. They had the experience of having done it themselves. My mother at a very young age. My brothers, being older, had done it before me. They had the belief in me that I could do it. They'd seen me swim at around my dock, so there's no reason I couldn't swim at another part of the lake. And if something went wrong, they would jump in. Those are the three things that the people in your support boat can do. They believe in you. They've done it before. They have experience. They can tell you what to do. And if all goes wrong, they can jump in and save you. And so my question then is, who's in your support boat? Because when I did make it the second time, what changed for me was the belief that they had in me, which was stronger than my self-doubt. That helped me overcome. It was the people in my support boat. Who's in your support boat? And who do you provide the support boat to in your life? That's an important question. When I think about this, I think about all of you who have reached out over these difficult months, asking about the situation in Hong Kong, asking about the pandemic. Thank you. And I've done the same. We reach out, we support each other through stormy waters. That's another great analogy of life. I think, for example, of my cousin John Clark, who's suffering cancer and who's supported by family. I think of his mother Barbara, who many of you know very well, who emails and does handmade cards and sends them consistently. She was also a great support to my mother as girls growing up. They were also support to their Barbara's sister Linda Mary, who had celebrated a beautiful birthday, and her son Tom sent me a photo, which I shared with some of you. The photo of Linda Mary in her seniors residence in Chicago, celebrating her birthday, looking through the window at her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren all celebrating. A beautiful photo that gave us all support at one of the dark points in this winter of pandemic. I think of my niece Tori Nixon, Bob's daughter, who was a temporary COVID nurse at the Jewish General Hospital in Montreal this winter. The pandemic center for Canada. And she herself provided a support boat as she held her cell phone to patients' ears so they could say goodbye to their family members that were dying in the hospital. I think of her fiance, Rami. They've had to delay their marriage this summer. The wedding was postponed because of the coronavirus situation. And yet he was busy repatriating Canadians from other countries that were stuck in the pandemic. I think also of my cousin Kathy Jennings, Kim Sedgwick, Hugh Winters, David McIntyre, all the Shea Marco crowd, people who reached out to me last year and through the year and provided kind of a support to a new owner, especially last summer when I was recovering from my hernia operation. We all think of Bruce and Doug Calhoun and Heather as she was in her final days, and they were providing support for her. And through that perhaps darkest hours of the winter came the cougar out of history to provide all of us a great excitement in terms of where we were at. The Titanic story that has gone around about the Red Chesterfield has also enabled me to think about my neighbor Anne Sedgwick, who wrote and remembers as a girl going to visit my grandmother. It was my grandmother's sister May who was nurse to Lady Astor on the Titanic, and their other sister Charlotte, who tells a story of Lady Astor having a wooden screen in her bedroom made of the wood from the support boat, the life raft that she survived on from the sinking of the Titanic. We provide that very much support for each other. We are the Lake family tree, and I think that provides a support to all of us that we feel and we need in times of trouble, which inevitably will come. Let me now just share this time-lapse video. Some of you have seen it. This is winter at the lake, which shows also why we go to the lake. We go for the water. We go because of the lake. We've been going for generations. And the lake turns into snow and ice, and we are in a snow belt. In fact, on my webcam, I think it snowed every night from October until June or May. The scenes were absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to spend a winter at the lake like so many of you have a chance. The cedar cottage that I inherited and occupy now is also linked to one of the two Bible readings for today. This Bible reading, 2 Samuel 7, is God's promise to David, and it's a link to our Lake family tree as well. It is written, "After the king was settled in his palace, and the Lord had given him rest from all his enemies around him, he said to Nathan the prophet, 'Here I am, living in a house of cedar, while the ark of God remains in a tent. The Lord declares to you that the Lord himself will establish a house for you. When your days are over and your rest comes with your ancestors, I will raise up your offspring to succeed you, your own flesh and blood, and I will establish his kingdom. And whether you are raising children, adopted children, stepchildren, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, these are all the generations that will follow us at the lake as time moves on.' So we think about the jacket, the life jacket, we think about the lifeboat, but most important of all is we think about the water. We think about the water, and as the snow comes off my roof, let me return to this next slide and a few stories about the water. I have a sand collection from beaches and sand dunes around the world, and 3 special ones I'd like to share with you today. One comes from the beach at Cowlack, and Cowlack is the point at which the 2004 tsunami reached the highest point. It reached some 30 meters, the way the lay of the land is, and the beach going so far out into the ocean. The tsunami wave rose up 30 meters and carried this police boat over 1 kilometer inland and laid it down, just as you see it in the photo. They couldn't have done it better if they had to try. The water just laid it down, and it's now there as a tourist site. I had a chance to collect my sand from that beach and visit the police boat when I took a group of senior public servants from the Malaysian government to meet with and talk to tsunami orphans, children who had lost all of their family members in the tsunami and were being raised together in a home not far from this boat, up the mountain, far from the water. They were all scared of the water, and being raised by an NGO from Switzerland. Very, very moving. And also collected extra vials of sand from this beach because my sister-in-law Elaine lost her brother through complications of the tsunami at the same time, and I gave that to my niece and nephew, Wesley and Heidi, in his memory. I have a vial of sand from the empty quarter in Saudi Arabia, the largest and highest dunes in the world, some 650,000 square kilometers. Incredible to think that it is said if you walk into this empty quarter, you'll never walk out. So hot, so arid, no human can survive. I was with a group, we flew in and flew out the same day, so we were okay. But special place to be, for sure. And then a third vial of sand from Whitehaven Beach. Perhaps some of you have been. Considered the most beautiful beach in the world. It's in the Whitsunday Islands of Queensland, Australia. And yet, despite being so beautiful, it is dangerous as well to swim there with various creatures that can get you in the ocean. So water is both the source of life and the source of problems. Many of you wonder what it's like living in Hong Kong in the last year. We've had endless democracy protests. Well, water has played its role here as well. The water has been used, saline solution, to wash the tear gas out of protesters' eyes. And water's been used by the police in water cannons to disperse protesters. And now we've passed a security law, and Hong Kong, you know, we have to remember it's been fought over for forever, for history. Since the beginning of time, it was considered a deep water port and safe shelter for ships and world trade. The British were in charge for a long time. The Japanese attacked and took it over during World War II. And now many people feel that the Communist Party is cracking down. But I've learned not to bet against Hong Kong. It's a wonderful place. It's a wonderful culture, and it will carry on for sure. It's the water. It's the special belief in the water. The other Bible passage for today also has a water reference. It is Psalm 23. And the Griffith family, which I'm representing as speaker today, the Griffith family, as one of the first families at Lac des Îles, can draw its ancestry all the way back to the Mayflower. And the Geneva Bible, it was carried on the Mayflower, predates the King James Version by 51 years. It was the Bible of Cromwell and Shakespeare and Calvin and Knox. It was said that in 1579, the Scottish Parliament passed a law that all families should have a copy of the Geneva Bible in their homes. And I counted, there's been something like 15 pandemics ever since this Bible was first published. So let me read Psalm 23 from the Geneva Bible. I think you know the words. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to rest in green pastures, and leadeth me by the still waters. He restoreth my soul, and leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I should walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou dost prepare a table before me in the light of mine adversaries. Thou dost anoint mine head with oil, and my cup runneth over. Doubtless kindness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall remain a long season in the house of the Lord. So in summary, swim your distance. Remember your life jacket. It's filled with compassion, with dialogue, with relationships of those people who live around you, regardless of where they're from or what their beliefs are. Remember the people in your lifeboat. They have the experience, they have the belief in you, they have the preparedness to jump and save you when you need it. And who are you providing your support boat to? We all need to help each other. And finally, remember the water brings life, but it's also danger. But the only way across is to jump in and swim your distance. And so do so knowing that whatever comes, it will be fine. You will survive. I leave you with a beautiful picture of the sunset that I took last summer. I wish I was with you this summer. We miss you. We wish you a great summer. This photo is, though, perhaps even more special than any sunset photo I've seen. This is the moonrise on May 6th, the super moon, which will not appear again now until November 21st, 2021. And shining off the melting waters on the ice on the lake at Lac des Îles. Absolutely gorgeous. So here's a little thank you. If you send me your updates to the Lake Family Tree, I'll do a 2020 version and share that. If you want to, grab your smartphone and just record your earliest memory of swimming your distance and email or WhatsApp to me, and I'll consolidate them and create a little YouTube. That could be fun. Finally, thank you for listening. Thank you to the church committee for the invitation. Thank you to Sue Black for putting together this service. And have a wonderful summer. We'll see you all again next summer at Lac des Îles.